The publishing world woke up this week to news that will change everything we thought we knew about what comes next for the British royal family. And darling, I am going to need you to sit down for this one. Penguin Random House, one of the most powerful publishing houses on the planet, has reportedly told sources this week that it is done with Harry and Meghan. Finished. The executives, who have been fielding near weekly calls from the Sussex camp demanding money they believe they are owed in royalties, have apparently reached the end of their patience. And the extraordinary detail, the one that made me put down my morning coffee and stare at the ceiling for a moment, is that Meghan had already submitted at least 2 book proposals to that same publisher. Not one, 2. A book on leadership and philanthropy, and rather ominously, what has been described as a divorce book. Both were turned down. Penguin Random House will never publish another book by them, a source said plainly this week. They were financially burned. Now, I want you to really sit with that for a moment, because the implications are staggering. Spare, Harry's memoir, sold over 6 million copies. 6 million. It was the fastest-selling non-fiction book in recorded history, according to Guinness World Records. He earned a reported $20 million for writing it. And yet Penguin Random House says the publishing house never earned out its advance. The couple apparently believe royalties are flowing their way. They are not. And Harry, one publishing insider said with a frankness I found rather refreshing, has a fundamental disconnect to the concept of money. As sentences go, that is rather a lot to unpack over one's morning toast. Think about what that actually means in practice. The original deal with Penguin Random House, signed in 2021, was reported to be worth around $40 million across multiple books. It included Meghan's children's book, The Bench, which came out that same year and reached #1 on the New York Times list, largely on the strength of who she was rather than what she had written. Critics were, shall we say, not uniformly enthusiastic. Harry's memoir followed in early 2023, and the remaining books, the ones that were supposed to round out this grand publishing arrangement, have simply not materialized. 2 proposals from Meghan were submitted and rejected, and now the relationship is, by all accounts, over. A $40 million deal, and the only items they actually delivered were a picture book and a work of grievance. The executives, I am told, feel burned. That rather understated word is doing a great deal of heavy lifting. But here is the part that I find most significant and most alarming for those of us who care deeply about the well-being of the royal family. What happens when Penguin Random House closes its doors and the Netflix deal has wound down and the Australian wellness retreats stop selling out? What happens when the commercial options have narrowed, one by one, like lights going off in a house after supper? The answer is that Meghan's memoir, those diaries she has apparently been keeping and which she has made clear she never signed away in any NDA, becomes not just a personal project, it becomes a financial necessity. Tom Bower, who has spent more time than almost anyone studying this couple's behaviour and motivations, has described Meghan as the silent weapon in reserve, and he believes the book is coming. He told a publication that she is a good writer and that it will be filled with what she genuinely believes to be the truth, shaped for maximum impact. His assessment is that she will not tell the whole truth because she wants a sensational headline. That is the ultimate weapon she can deploy. Those are quite extraordinary words from a man who has just spent months researching his second book about this family. He does not choose them lightly. What concerns me, and I say this not with any relish but with a genuinely anxious heart, is the timing question. Because the timing of this memoir, whenever it comes, will not be accidental. The Sussex operation has already demonstrated once, when Harry's book landed during the Netflix documentary rollout and wrong-footed virtually every relationship they had in the industry, that they do not always manage sequencing gracefully. But a Meghan memoir is a different animal entirely. Harry wrote about his family. Meghan would be writing about her family-in-law, her husband, and a country that she has described as failing her. The question of when she releases it and under what circumstances is one of the most consequential influential publishing decisions of this decade. And from what we now know about the state of their finances, she may not have the luxury of waiting as long as she might like. There is also, if the sources who spoke to Vanity Fair are to be believed, the deeply uncomfortable question of what happens if the marriage does not survive. A book that was being pitched as a post-divorce memoir is not a book written in a period of quiet domestic contentment. It is a book written by someone who was, at some point at least, preparing for a very different kind of future to the one she is currently publicly presenting. I am not saying the marriage is over. I am not saying anything about the private circumstances of two people I do not know. But I am saying that when a publishing proposal exists, when it has been described to multiple sources in the industry, it does not simply vanish. It sits in the record, and one day someone will have to account for it. There is also the question of what book this actually is, because this is where it gets rather interesting. A source had apparently already been shopping the idea of a divorce book to publishers on her behalf, a fact confirmed by Vanity Fair. Now, whether that was a negotiating tactic, a genuine contingency plan, or simply someone getting ahead of themselves, I genuinely cannot say. What I can say is that publishers were told about it, which means the people inside the publishing world know it exists as an idea. And once an idea like that is out there, it does not simply disappear. It sits quietly, waiting. Meanwhile, in London this week, something rather more heartening is unfolding. King Charles has just had it confirmed by the White House itself that he will travel to the United States next month for a state visit, with a state dinner at the White House, a stop in New York City, and an address to a joint session of Congress. The last time a British royal addressed Congress was in May of 1991, when his mother, our magnificent late Queen Elizabeth II, did so to a packed House chamber. That Charles is now preparing to walk in those footsteps, to stand in that chamber and represent Britain to the world's most powerful legislature, is something that fills me with the most profound and uncomplicated pride. And he is doing all of this while undergoing cancer treatment. Let us not forget that. The photographs from the Nigerian state visit this week, the first state visit of the year, showed a man who is thinner than we would like and whose hands are more swollen than is comfortable to see. And yet he was there, on the steps, in the carriage, at the banquet, receiving President Tinubu with all the ceremony and warmth and unshakable grace that this country does better than anywhere else on earth. I watched those photographs and felt something quite fierce rise up in me, a mixture of admiration and love for this stubborn, complicated, deeply committed man who has given everything he has to this job and simply will not stop. William and Catherine were beside him every step of the way, and watching the three of them together, I found myself thinking that whatever storms have battered this family in recent years, the line holds. It always holds. One expert this week noted that the British press is barely acknowledging how seriously unwell the king is. And I think that is true. And I think it is a conversation we are going to have more openly as a country. Not because we should be ghoulish about it, but because, as Tom Sykes argued rather powerfully this week, if your charity has a royal patron, if you work within an institution connected to the palace, if your planning depends in any way on the continuation of this reign, then the responsible thing, the grown-up British thing, is to think ahead. We did it when Queen Elizabeth was in her final years. We can do it now without it being morbid or disloyal. Planning is not the same as wishing. And frankly, with the king preparing to address the United States Congress next month, history is still very much being made. The picture being painted this week, when you step back and take it all in, is one of two very different trajectories. On one side, a couple in California whose publisher has walked away, whose streaming deal has stalled, and who are now reportedly eyeing their way back toward the palace with something called Project Thor, a reported scheme to restore taxpayer-funded security by the time they return to Britain this summer. The Home Office, I should note, is apparently rather nervous about the whole business, worried about the political fallout of handing back privileges to people who spent the best part of 4 years publicly burning bridges. On the other, a king who is unwell but unbowed, preparing to address the American Congress, while his daughter-in-law and his son quietly and magnificently shoulder more and more of the load beside him. One side is angling for a return, the other never left. I find the contrast, honestly, rather galvanizing. Not sad, not wistful, galvanizing. Because whatever Meghan Markle eventually writes in those diaries of hers, whatever publisher eventually takes the gamble, and whatever advance they offer, it will land in a world that has watched what this family has done in the years since the Sussex departure. It will land beside the photographs of William and Catherine receiving the President of Nigeria on the steps at Windsor, beside pictures of the King, visibly tired but absolutely present, fulfilling his duty to this country, without complaint or memoir or podcast. And I think when it does, a great many people will know exactly what to make of it. The receipts, as I believe the young people say, are already in. Britain has always had a gift for recognizing the real thing when it sees it. When King Charles stands before the United States Congress next month, weak hands and all, representing this nation with every scrap of dignity he possesses, I rather think the contrast will look after itself. That has not changed. It will not change. And no diary, however carefully kept, will alter it.